All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys had a nice weekend. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the nice weather. Hopefully, there's more of that to come. What I want to do today is I want to wrap up 22-1. So, last week we focused on political parties and their impact on like a national scale, and also, talking about the states and the local impact, the roles that they play, like being watchdogs and, keeping an eye on other parties and also platforms and things of that nature. Today, what I want to do very quickly is go over the second part of 22-1, which focuses on how parties help citizens directly. I will be sharing a copy of these notes. You do not have to write them down. And I am also going to make these into an ed puzzle. So hopefully this works. I think I figured out what I did wrong last time. So hopefully we can get that to work this time. And if it doesn't, obviously not anyone's fault except mine. So we'll figure something out. So again, part two, how parties help citizens. Okay, so in general, the political parties, again, it's an organization that, works. Political parties are organizations and groups of people that work to, you know, get certain people elected that support what their party stands for. Okay, like we talked about platforms, we talked about planks, which make up platforms. But when it comes to individual citizens, parties help citizens fulfill their responsibilities in our democracy. So, yes, what political parties do have a major impact on a national level and on our state governments and on our federal government. But they also play a role in helping individual people get involved in the democratic process. Parties help citizens make their voices heard, and they also inform citizens and provide ways for them to participate. The more participation that these political parties can get from citizens, the stronger their voices and the stronger their party is as a whole. So it is very advantageous of these political parties to get down to the lowest levels of society, the local level, and to engage citizens in any way they can. So we're going to read a little, I'll read this out loud with you guys, but we're going to look at a little example of how citizens' voices in government can be amplified in a way, can be increased due to the help of political parties. So political parties provide a way for citizens to be heard. We're going to be reading a little excerpt from a person named Eddie Stevenson, who is a county chairperson for her political party. And she describes her experience as a county chairperson, and also how that pertains to her specific political party. So it states here that when I accepted the job as county chair, few people in our county were aware of what the party stood for. So we wrote short statements of our policies on such topics as education and the environment. Then we held a series of community meetings. The people who came really spoke up about what was important to them. We rewrote some of our statements based on what we learned from the people's concerns. Our candidates discovered that the meetings were a good way to keep up on what people around here wanted from the government. So there's a couple points here. She states that, it was very important to get people to understand what her party was all about. Because, not everybody is a social studies teacher. Not everybody is super interested in politics as it is. A lot of people think it's boring. And guess what? I agree with a lot of that. But it is important to understand how you can vote, and also knowing how, part of the voting process is being aware of political topics and being aware of what certain candidates and what certain political parties stand for. So a big job that political parties have, according to Eddie Stevenson here, is making sure that people understand what they're all about, making sure they understand their platform. So again, they talked about policies on education and the environment. We talked about political party platforms, like their stance on major political topics, and then the planks are like, the statements that build that platform on that particular topic. So things like the education, things like the environment. It's important for the parties to make it very easy for citizens to understand, and that they don't always do a great job of this. You can argue that sometimes it can be too complicated, and that turns people off, especially people that are not super interested in government and in politics. So it is the job of the parties to make sure that it's easy for people to understand. So again, she talks about how they rewrote statements based on the people who came to these community meetings and spoke their mind about certain topics. So they would use what they heard at these meetings, and they would rewrite some of those statements based on the concerns of the people. And in the end, it served a pretty important purpose, because it helped get a message out to the people about their party. And it did one of two things. It gave people, an idea of what that party stood for, and maybe those people decided to support that party. The second thing is, maybe it made people realize, well, maybe I'm not really, into this political party, and maybe now that I have an idea of what this party stands for, maybe I can branch out and see what other parties stand for. So either way, even though it may not always impact, Stevenson's party specifically, in the end, it's either way, it's getting people more aware about political parties and their purpose and what their action plan is if their candidates get elected. Okay. So Eddie's experience shows that at the local level, parties give citizens a voice, or at least they try to give them a voice as best they can. At the state and national levels, party members help hammer out the party platform, debating and deciding on issues. And once they have that party platform and they have it organized and it's written down and they have a plan, they then get that platform out there as quickly as possible and as widespread as possible, as a way to get the citizens interested and to keep them informed about what their party stands for on certain issues. Okay? So this is the last slide. So the idea of informing citizens. So a little more information about this. Parties also inform citizens by sending out mailings and giving information to newspapers, radio, TV, and web-based reporters. I'm sure that if you guys ever have to, one of my jobs, when I was younger and I go home from school, first thing I had to do, unless, I wanted to get yelled at by my mom and dad, I had to go and get the mail. So I'd go and get the mail, and sometimes it's like, we would call it junk mail. Sometimes you guys may have seen flyers or envelopes that were labeled, with a certain political party symbol on it, like Democrat or Republican. Again, Republican, you have the elephant. Democrat, you have the donkey. Maybe there was a letter from a congressperson for your district in your state, or maybe even on a smaller level, maybe it's a letter from a town council person or a city council person or a mayor or a governor. So it's not just, social media that's being used to get the word out about a political party's platform and how to reach out to citizens. They also have been doing this well before social media, with newspapers, with mailings, again, radio, even TV. I think we've evolved to just a more web-based way of getting the word out to people. But back in the day, obviously the web wasn't around, so they needed to do things, we call it the grassroots way, going door to door and handing things to people, knocking on their door, asking them if they have 5 or 10 minutes to talk about a certain candidate and where he or she stands on certain issues. Some of us think that's kind of annoying. Other people do enjoy it, and they do it any which way to get the word out. So they want to cover all their bases. So all of these ways of informing citizens, they provide quick responses to new issues so voters will know where the party stands. Again, the idea is for voters to have an easy way to understand which party or which way or what the stance is that each party has on each topic. If you make it easy, concise, and short, it makes it a lot easier for people who may not be super into politics to understand what each party is about and where each party stands. Parties inform citizens by arranging meetings with candidates. Okay, so like we talked about with Eddie Stevenson, different town hall meetings or community meetings are a great way to gauge the public interest and to get the exact way that each community is feeling about certain topics, having a meeting, okay? Because sometimes when you send letters, I mean, some people read them, but a lot of people just look at it and throw it away. I know I've done that. And I'm sure you guys have done that. I'm sure your parents have done that. So having meetings is a great way to get people interested because usually it's held in the community, so it's not far to drive. And also it's nice to get to see the candidates who are actually holding the meetings, and you can ask them questions directly rather than sending them an email or a letter, and there's a chance that they're not going to see it or you're not going to get a very, direct answer. So back to one of our vocab terms, party members and volunteers also canvass. And the other, way to describe canvassing is going door to door, handing out information and asking people which candidate they support. And the goal of this is to provide information in order to encourage people to vote for those candidates. So yeah, going door to door is very old school, but it's also very effective because it's a much more personable way of interacting with potential voters. It's can be more effective sometimes than just sending a letter because, again, you may not read the letter because you could read that in your own time. But if someone knocks on your door and they are talking about something that is near and dear to your heart, you may take the time, or you may be more willing to take the time to talk to that person and get an idea about the candidate that they are supporting or they are representing. Again, a lot of the times it's volunteers that do that, but sometimes the actual party members will take that initiative and do that. And it's just a much easier way to gauge the public's interest in that candidate and also their stance on issues. Part of your assignment today is another Ed puzzle. I don't know if anyone is a big Parks and Recs fan, but I found a video from one of the earlier episodes in that show that shows what canvassing actually looks like. What it looks like when people actually canvass, okay? So you're going to be answering questions about that too. So by making information available to voters, parties can also help simplify political decision making. Again, keep it simple, stupid. That's really what you want to do. And I know that's probably not the best way to say it, but that's true. If it's too complicated for individuals to understand what the Republican Party stands for, what the Democratic Party stands for, then it's really hard for us to make a decision. Okay, so it is the job of the parties to make things simple. And they don't always do a great job of that, but that's the goal. They want to make things simple to get people to figure out right away if people are interested or they're not interested. Because either way, at least you have a definite answer. So that is it today. Again, not a very large topic. I mean, most of the information was in the previous slide. So make sure the slide presentation 22-1, which is the role of political parties. So make sure that you guys take a look at those because you are going to be quizzed on this stuff. Depending on your class, it could be Thursday, it could be next Tuesday. So make sure you guys are aware of that. And if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. Please continue to make up work if you missed assignments. I will accept it. I can't guarantee you'll get full credit, but I will give you some credit. Okay? Have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys later.